Okay, we're going to go into Module 4 already. In this module, we're going to discuss a peer educator's role as a responder. So you as peer educators will sometimes have to respond to urgent situations or to peers who are experiencing distress. So we're going to talk about responding to situations like this on both an individual and a community level. We're going to discuss your roles as mandated reporters and talk about making referrals to various resources. We also will have Title IX come talk to y'all in the in-person training. So no worries there that if there's some questions that you may have that you want answered. Our outline is going to be responding on an individual level, a plan of action. We are going to talk about mandated reporting. We are going to talk about referrals and campus resources, and we're going to talk about responding on a community level. And then again, we'll end with our module review. So, what might peer educators respond to? Peer educators often respond to many different types of situations that we have on campus. Responding on a smaller individual scale might not always involve preventing imminent danger or harm. Sometimes you simply might be helping a person that carries significant emotional complexity. An example could be a peer disclosing mental health struggles. A community level response, however, tends to involve dealing with threats to individuals' physical safety or well-being. These situations can range from a water line breaking in an academic building to a natural disaster, such as a hurricane or earthquake. I don't know if anybody ever saw when there was some green smoke coming out underneath some of the tunnels in Texas Tech campus. Some of our peer educators happened to be on campus at various times and saw that happening. So there's some individual crises and some community level crises. So when we talk about responding on an individual level, we are working with the peer who's experiencing a personal issue. The first thing we want to remember is that we must meet them where they are. We talked a lot about that in the last module, meeting them where they're at. If a person's not ready to make a change, then they may not be ready to begin the process of resolving the situation. If you have determined that the person is ready to talk about change, discuss what they want to have happen. What is the ideal result for this individual? So we look at having a plan of action. There's 6 steps to the response checklist. Once we've discussed with the person what their end goal is, we can begin working through this response checklist, and we'll go through each step by step. So one is, why do you want this to happen? Determine why you want this to happen. It's important to discuss the person's motivation behind their goal. This is going to help you gauge how committed the person is to their goal. And additionally, it's crucial that the person with whom you're working with maintains a sense of agency in the process. It's important that they kind of have a say and a hand in their process. The individual must take charge and own their decisions throughout this process. The next thing is to do a reality check. Once we determine the person's motivation, we can talk about whether the solution or end goal is realistic. Is this goal achievable? And will it help resolve the problem? We also want to keep in mind the difference between a quick fix and a long-term solution. Ideally, we want to address underlying causes of distress as well as high-risk behaviors. So looking at, is the solution reasonable and realistic? Will the solution be able to solve the situation? Is this a quick fix or long-term solution? So next we can look at making a plan. This is where we can brainstorm solutions with the person. The main goal here is to make sure the person has a menu of options to demonstrate that the individual has a choice in how to reach the end goal. However, we want to avoid providing too many options, as this can seem overwhelming and make it hard for the individual to choose a plan of action. The next is committing to take action. First, we want to review the plan we previously made and make sure the person feels it's achievable and will help to reach the end goal. We also want to reevaluate the person's commitments to this plan. This could help us determine what kinds of resources or maybe other assistance that might be helpful to them as this plan is being implemented. We want to look at reinforcement and forecasting. In this stage, we want to make sure to use affirmations to ensure the person we are working with feels confident and capable of carrying out the plan. This is a good time to address any misgivings or worries the person may have. It's also important to discuss how you will know when the goal you decided upon has been achieved. So we want to look at the first step and the first reward. You should leave the person with a clear action step to take. Let me start over. I'm so sorry. You should leave the person with a clear action step to take to put their plan into motion. Planning rewards is also important because it gives the person an incentive to follow through on the plan they committed to. Work with the person to decide what this reward will be. The reward shouldn't be related to behavior the person is trying to change. For example, if the person is trying to cut back on their alcohol use, going to the bar over the weekend is not a good result or a good reward for them. So this video is going to show you a peer educator working with another student who's in distress using the plan of action framework we just discussed. And as students watch other people engage, when you kind of see this interaction occur, I want you to think about some of these questions. What did the peer educator do well? What did the peer educator not do well? Did the plan of action model seem effective? Why or why not? And how might this model be helpful in your role as a peer educator?
Thanks for meeting with me. When you made your appointment, it sounded like you wanted to talk about how you can stop smoking cigarettes. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Great. Before we start, can you tell me why you want to quit?
Sure. I've noticed that I start running out of breath a lot faster when I work out, and I hate how much money I spend on cigarettes.
Those sound like some good reasons to stop smoking. It's important for you to take accountability of the process in order to be successful. How long have you been smoking?
Oh, about a year?
All right, and how much would you say that you smoke?
Oh, probably a pack every 2 days or so.
Okay. Do you feel it's realistic for you to stop smoking right away, or would it be easier to cut back on how much you already smoke?
Let's start by cutting back. I guess. I really want to be successful in quitting, and I don't want to do too much all at once.
So let's talk about our first goal. How much do you want to cut back?
Um, let's cut back to a pack a week.
That sounds like a good first goal. Let's talk about some ways that you can achieve this goal.
All right. Well, first, I could probably not spend so much time around people who also smoke, and maybe I could try getting some nicotine gum to help with the cravings.
Okay, so you want to spend less time around other people who smoke and use nicotine gum to help with the cravings.
Yes, that sounds good.
Okay, let's talk about how confident you feel in making this change.
I feel confident. I want to quit smoking because I want to be part of the club soccer team. I need to be in good shape, and cigarettes aren't helping.
Great. If you have trouble with cravings, you can always go see a counselor. There's some great counselors here on campus who specialize in helping people quit tobacco. I can give you their information if you like.
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay, I'll get you their information before you leave. I really like your first goal, and I'm glad that you feel confident. I'm confident that you can be successful in making this change.
Thanks.
You're welcome. So, how will you know when you complete your goal?
Well, I know the cravings wouldn't be as strong, and I know I wouldn't start running out of breath every time I exercise.
Okay, so let's keep those indicators in mind so you know if you ever need to alter your plan. So, what do you want your first step towards your goal to be?
I'm going to a friend's house tonight, and we usually do a lot of smoking together. Maybe I do not smoke at all with him tonight.
That sounds like a great first step. So, what will you do if you succeed in your goal? How will you reward yourself?
Well, there's this video game I've been really wanting to play. I could use that as my reward.
That sounds great. I'll leave you with a copy of this plan so you can have it. Why don't you make another appointment in a few weeks so we can check back in and see how it's going?
Okay, thanks so much.
So I gave you those discussion questions, and again, I want you can go back and move this video back a little bit and pause and ask yourself these questions. You can write them down or think about the answers in your head. So we're going to talk about confidentiality versus privacy. So a lot of times as peer educators, you're going to be asked to keep things confidential. In a lot of situations, we can't keep things confidential, even me being a full-time staff member. Rather, we can keep these things private. When you think about confidentiality, tell the student that who you're working with, that you won't spread the news unnecessarily, but you may have to inform some people. So, for example, I may have to inform Title IX, but that office will also keep your privacy. I'm not going to tell other students about your situation. So some confidentiality guidelines that we can follow. These are vital to keep in mind as your role as a peer educator. So the first is be honest. Make sure that you know and understand that you're a confidential resource on campus, and there may be a time that you have to inform another office, such as Title IX or the Dean of Students. Those are probably our two big offices, and we'll give y'all information on this. Um, if you need to tell a campus professional. Go back to the traps of a peer educator. You don't want to take on something too big. I, even myself, at times have to refer to other offices. That's really what Rise's role is. We help students get connected to resources. We are not counseling, we are not Title IX, but we help students get to these offices. Another guideline is stop other peer educators from sharing confidential information. This highlights again another trap of blurring the lines of integrity and ethics. Remember that individuals' crises and what they're going through is personal, and do your best to discourage gossip. And I would say do your best to discourage gossip amongst the peer educator organization as a whole. Even if it doesn't involve someone's safety or that they're in danger. I see this every semester that a few peer educators engage in gossip about various changes we make or individuals in different roles, and it really affects morale. I have a big rule in the department is that we don't gossip about each other. And I would really ask that you do the same amongst you and your peer educators. If you're unsure what to do, ask for help. You don't want to become liable in this situation. So your supervisor, your program manager is going to be trained and equipped to help you in any situation. And we're going to talk a little bit more in the in-person training about our school policies. But if you are concerned for somebody's well-being, you can file a Dean of Students report. And if somebody has experienced sexual assault, stalking, discrimination, harassment, you will be able to file a Title IX report as a mandated reporter. But again, you will go through a Title IX training because you are now an employee. When you come to campus, you will be an employee of the university. You are technically right now, but it's just that but we want to get you trained before you start having any interactions with students, and you're not going to do so until the fall. So this cannot be emphasized enough, limits on confidentiality. We really need to follow our campus policies as well as state and federal guidelines on confidentiality. So your program manager is going to be very knowledgeable in these areas. I am knowledgeable in these areas. And here's the thing, sometimes new policies and new procedures come up. So we might have to go in and get y'all up to date on them. So please make sure that you're in communication with your program manager or me about these policies and procedures. So there are some campus members that are confidential sources. It's best to communicate with a professional staff member to confirm the confidentiality of these staff members because it could change with policies and procedures. But typically on our campus, we don't have clergy on our campus, I don't believe. But for certain religions, a member of the clergy can often remain confidential. I think there are some religious groups and organizations that are around Broadway, 19th Street University, but nothing that falls under Texas Tech. Our lawyers on Texas Tech campus have attorney-client privilege, but again, we would need to double check that if a student went and reported a sexual assault or discrimination to them, that it wouldn't be reported to Title IX. I would have to double check with them because there are different situations in which that may not apply. But our mental health professionals and our medical professionals on campus are confidential resources. The Student Counseling Center is a confidential resource that students can go to. And if they report anything, our Student Counseling Center is not required to report those. That is true at Texas Tech University. So I want you to keep the following in mind when we talk about referrals and campus resources. Not all situations need a referral. Sometimes students just want to talk about a situation and they may feel better after speaking with you. If this becomes a habit, they may want to seek additional help. But however, initially, like this is not harmful. It is possible to give too many referrals. I think a lot of times I've heard this term before, like the campus shuffle. I think sometimes when a student's overwhelmed and we tell them to go to this office and this office and this office, that can be overwhelming to them in their situation. So, a couple of things like we can either walk the student to the office or maybe just give them the most pressing referral that they need at that time and then maybe follow up with them later, giving them a couple more. And again, you can talk to your program manager and say, hey, I told this student to go to the Student Counseling Center, but I really think they might need help from legal later. Could you follow up with them and let them know? The person has the right to refuse the referral. If someone's already, you know, in most cases, you cannot mandate that person to take that referral. Sometimes student conduct or other university administrative processes can mandate this. So our student conduct office may say you absolutely have to come in and meet with me, but not a lot of offices can do that. So the student doesn't technically always have to take the referral. As a peer educator, you can be a support system for the person, but you need to recognize that they have free will and the right to make their own choices. Gauge whether the person feels capable of following through. If the person is not ready to take any action to make a change, then the referral may not be helpful. And then make sure your referrals are correct. So again, we will go over a lot of the resources that we have on campus, but we could lose the student if we give them incorrect information. So we're going to look at responding on a community level. We've talked a lot about how to help someone how to deal with someone on an individual or personal level. Sometimes we have situations on a larger scale. Again, this can be losing power to a building, a contagious disease like COVID-19, an active shooter, or a natural disaster like an earthquake. The process of crisis management begins long before these events occurs and it continues after the event or threat is over. And sometimes peer educators serve on crisis response or emergency management teams. So it's good to have the foundational understanding of crisis management cycles. We don't have anybody in that serves on that role, but it's still helpful to know. We will give y'all up-to-date information if any emergency responses come through. We will tell y'all that it is important to download the Tech Alert app. That's going to be the best. That is our crisis management team, and they'll alert us for anything that we need to know regarding campus. I mentioned that the green smoke coming up from the tunnels either last year or the year before, we got told, go home, don't enter the buildings, but all the information was up to date. I do want to walk y'all through though the crisis management cycle. It's 5 stages. The process is circular, and once the crisis is over and we've completed the learning stage, we move right back into prevention and mitigation and start over. So when we think of prevention and mitigation regarding crisis management, we focus on making sure the crisis doesn't happen at all. So this is really prevention. We also take measures to ensure that if a crisis does occur, it will be less severe, mitigation. The planning stage mainly focuses on the ability and the desires of campuses and teams to develop procedures to deal with the crisis when it occurs. Again, there's people that we have an entire awesome team that does this, so you don't have to be involved in the planning of what happens when a crisis occurs. The response is the third piece of the crisis management circle. And in the response stage, we implement our plans and utilize resources to help support students. In the recovery phase of the cycle, we focus on getting back to normal. We are processing the events that have occurred and are finding ways to understand what has happened. Sometimes we may not be able to go back to the way things were before and we have to adjust to the new normal, right? COVID-19 was a good example of this. We all were coming back to campus and then there was just this really big push for a lot of meetings to still be online, even though we were on campus. And I'm sure some of your classes may operate the same. I know sometimes now when we close for a snowstorm, classes may still be held online because we have that capability because we did it through COVID. So a lot changed, right? And we have now a new normal. And then learning, once the crisis has occurred, we must be conscious of thinking about what's next. After we've dealt with the situation, a similar occurrence could happen sometime in the future, but we can learn from the incident so we can better mitigate and plan for possible future incidents. So we can look at what does community response look like on a campus. We have many different people and organizations that are involved in this on our campus. Again, this is NASPA slideshow, so it's not necessarily specific to Texas Tech University, but we do have Title IX. I serve on the campus safety meeting, and we go and there's various individuals from different departments on that. We do have TTUPD. We have the Student Counseling Center. We have case management or concern offices, which in our area, it's called the Dean of Students. And then they do have behavior intervention team meetings. They call them the BIT team meetings, where they discuss students of concern and how to best support them. Again, we're going to bring in Title IX to talk to you all, but Title IX is a legal requirement. It focuses on discrimination based on a variety of different things. It was introduced to enforce gender equity in collegiate athletics. When incidents involve discrimination, a Title IX investigation is launched. Title IX has also been applied to ways in which institutions handle instances of sexual violence. Title IX's professionals and departments typically work with response and recovery efforts, often investigating and adjudicating reports of sexual violence. And these offices are often involved in violence prevention work as well. We work really closely with Izolda Gomez. She will probably come and do our training, but you'll see Izolda at a lot of our events because we promote sexual health and healthy relationships in our department. And so we want to work with Title IX to make sure we're giving out the best information and making students aware of Title IX as a resource. We have campus safety meetings. I talked about this. We meet once a month on Friday mornings, and I'm at that meeting, and we talk about response efforts when things may be at risks maybe happening on campus. We talk about how to best prevent them and mitigate them, kind of like the model said earlier, the crisis management model. The last bullet point is talking about the Clery Act. The Clery Act requires campuses to report crimes and other data to the campus community annually. So we have a Clery report. It used to be housed on the RISE website, but now it's on the institutional compliance website. So it'll report any crime that happened. So that way you're kind of aware of what's going on campus. We have the Student Counseling Center. They provide intervention when necessary. They have walk-in hours, and I'll make sure that when y'all come to training, y'all have the most up-to-date times for their walk-in hours. They're a great resource and great place to refer to. They assist in recovery when trauma impacts the community, but they also assist individuals that are dealing with whatever they may be dealing with mental health wise and try to help them achieve mental well-being. They also have groups that are on a variety of different topics. The Student Counseling Center also partners with us on a lot of different events on campus, and because we also have Heather Frazier, our program manager, who works with mental well-being, and so they're a great partner to work with. This case management piece, really, this is the office that deals with student concerns. It's broken up through NASPA for basic needs, financial and food insecurity, and mental health and medical concerns. We're lucky we kind of have those broken out into various offices. Just general student issues or concerns. If a student is feeling suicidal, if a student is missing a lot of class because they can't get out of bed because they're depressed, if a student is experiencing a lot of social anxiety, if a student is dealing with alcohol and drug related substance abuse. That's really all the Dean of Students. Deaths in families, that all goes to the Dean of Students. We do have a financial and food insecurity office. Um, we have Red to Black that helps with financial matters, but we have the food pantry that helps with food insecurity. They can also get reported to the Dean of Students, but the food pantry is a great resource. And then mental health, the Student Counseling Center. And then again, we're lucky we have the Student Health Clinic, and that can help with medical concerns. We do have a behavior intervention team. This is a team of campus and community members that try to coordinate together to help students the best that they can, especially students that are really needing support and have had some pretty extreme situations. So case managers, housing's typically on those calls, student conduct, the dean of students. I am not involved in those meetings, but there's a lot of different professionals that are on that team to help best support the students they talk about. Um, I am not as familiar with how our behavior intervention team works. I know that this sometimes students that are peer educators work in Dean of Students offices, so NASPA kind of wanted us to talk about that, but we really don't have a lot of involvement in the behavior intervention team. But if a student is of concern to you, you can report them to the Dean of Students office. So we want to look at Module 4 review. We're going right along. We're now at this point halfway done with our training. We have 8 modules, so you've got 4 more left. We are going to look at the 5 steps of the crisis management cycle. Again, I don't want y'all to feel like y'all have to know this. Please know this for your test, but I don't want you to feel like you have to know this in regards to Texas Tech because we don't do a lot with the crisis management cycle. But it's learning, prevention and mitigation, planning, response, and recovery. When we look at making a plan of action, give me 1 second. Got to the wrong slide. We need to, 1, determine why you want this to happen. 2, do a reality check. 3, make a plan. 4, commit to taking the action. 5, reinforce and forecast. And then 6, plan the first step and first reward. And then our behavioral intervention team, our BIT team, like I said, it's made up of a bunch of different professionals around campus. Our assistant dean of students who runs the dean of students office gets a bunch of professionals together and they help students that are in need of support. And that is module 4.